Well, welcome to the show. We're back up to full strength now on return from my holiday. Nice to see you both. We'll start at St James's Park, Ogden, where you were to witness Arsenal's late comeback. Obviously, results define the narrative always. 2 goals from corners, but did they deserve it? It came very, very late. Did we kind of learn anything new about Arsenal, do you think?
Well, we learned they can deal with the pressure because before you go into the game, and obviously Liverpool losing on Saturday, the big question was now, can Arsenal take advantage of Liverpool slipping up? We know that Arsenal have lost at Liverpool this season. They drew at home to Man City. So there have been a few questions about their resilience, their resolve, their ability to show they can handle it. And they did that. And they did it in difficult circumstances. Obviously, Newcastle away is one of the toughest games for anybody on the calendar. They're such a tough physical team. Newcastle scored the first goal. Arsenal had a penalty shout turned down in the first half when Nick Pope seemed to have fouled Victor Gyökeres. So they had a lot of adversity to overcome. And despite the fact that Mikel Arteta probably got his team wrong again at the start, he managed to salvage it by making the right substitutions. The subs made a big impact with the goals. Mourinho scored, Odegaard and Martinelli played a big role in the other goal as well. So I think ultimately Arsenal were asked a lot of questions and they answered them in a positive way by winning at Newcastle.
What did you make of Victor Gyökeres? As you say, he probably should have won a penalty, or certainly thought he'd won a penalty. He's got 3 goals already in the league, but I would say there were 1 or 2 grumblings about whether he's quite up to it. He obviously needs a period of adjustment. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of Gyökeres recently, and I don't think he's top quality as a centre forward. He's not in the Erling Haaland or Lewandowski or Alexander Isak bracket. But you look at the strikers that have moved this summer, he's probably doing better than Benjamin Sesko at Man United, who Arsenal looked at. The thing at Newcastle, Gyökeres he's big in ways like of an old school centre forward. He's very kind of burly, and I think he's 6'2", but he looked like he was absolutely dwarfed by the Newcastle defenders. He had 4 defenders throughout the game. I think Dan Burn, we had Botman, who's huge, Malik Chow, and at the end of the game, they put on Jamal Lascelles, and each one took it in turns to basically give Gyökeres a bit of a battering. And he stood up to it, he dealt with it, he kept coming back for more. But you want a little bit more than that from an Arsenal centre-forward. I mean, he's no Thierry Henry, let's put it that way, but he has got heart, he has got the ability to run. He run all day, and I thought he was unlucky with the penalty shot because, is VAR really being used correctly to intervene on a decision like that? Because it certainly wasn't a clear and obvious error by the referee. In real time, it looked like Nick Pope took him out of the game. Gyökeres had to take evasive action to avoid being fouled by Pope. And there's a very, very, very slight touch by Pope on the ball after Gyökeres had gone down. So, listen, that's debatable. But he didn't score a goal, but I think he brought something to the team in terms of his work rate. But, like you say, overall, is that enough to be an Arsenal centre-forward? I think probably not, but he has to keep scoring the goals against the lesser teams at home, which he's been doing, and that might be what gets them over the line in the end.
And what was Arteta like afterwards? I mean, there's a lot of focus on him now. The club have spent more than £260 million again this summer. Big outlay, the heavy investment, also in terms of numbers in the squad. And the sort of focus is shifting towards how can he manage it. Did he kind of acknowledge maybe that he got anything wrong previously, or anything had changed, or was there any sign of any of that, or was it all, I knew this was all going to happen and it's all part of my master plan?
Mate, how long have you been covering Arsenal, Mikel Arteta? 5 years? Has he got anything wrong?
Look, it was nice to ask someone else the question.
I'm not sure he's ever admitted to get anything wrong. So obviously during your holiday, I've seen Arsenal 3 times. I saw him in Bilbao against City and at Newcastle, and I was actually quite impressed with Bilbao over the period that run of games. Certainly in Bilbao, I think he's got a new charisma and a confidence this summer, whether it's because of the money that's been spent and the signings that he's been made, or if he looks at his squad and realises that he has got, apart from maybe replacement for Martin Odegaard, a cover for every position. I think he knows he's got a real chance at the title. And he was a bit tetchy after the City game last week, but obviously Arsenal should have probably won that game and ended up with a draw. But obviously at Newcastle at the weekend, he didn't make much of the penalty incident because Arsenal won. And he didn't really fall for I made the wrong team selection at the start. So he was certainly not admitting to any fault. He was just talking up the fact that there are certain games and certain moments in the season which can define a season, and you have to answer certain questions. And he was basically saying, look, we've done that. We've been to Newcastle, a ground where they'd lost the last 3 games without scoring in all competitions, and they stood up to it. So he was pretty happy after the game yesterday, and rightly so, because they've closed the gap to Liverpool to 2 points. They've shown the title race on. I think he knows over the course of a season they've got a real chance.
as you say, Oggy, they've cut that gap to 2 points because, of course, Liverpool lost at Crystal Palace. Rob, how much? I mean, we're only, what are we, 5-6 games into the season, so we can't be talking about hope for the rest. But do you think that result had been coming for Liverpool and maybe expose a few frailties that those late goals that they'd scored previously had masked?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the late goals, you keep scoring them, and people sort of say, "Oh, it's the mark of champions," which, in a sense, is true. But also, it's not really sustainable to carry on winning games like that week after week. Now, Liverpool have done really well to eke out as many late goals as they have done, but maybe there was a feeling that a result like that was coming, perhaps not in that way, in that they've scored a late goal themselves to get them back in the game and hopefully draw the game, or hopefully on their part draw the game 1-1, and then have gone and conceded right at the last minute. I think Slot was quite honest in his post-match stuff and sort of said that if any team deserved to win, it probably was Palace. And Palace were outstanding in the first half and could have been 2 or 3 goals clear by half-time. It was only really sort of Liverpool's late push that got them back into the game at all. I thought Eddie Nketiah takes that goal at the end absolutely fantastically. I mean, it's a really, really tough chance. I mean, it doesn't look it when you watch on the highlights, but the ball comes to him really quickly. That touch to kind of chest it down and smash his finish into the net at that stage of the game is terrific. And obviously, you have to remember that it's not, it's a Palace team who are absolutely sort of flying at the moment. Liverpool have had trouble with them in the past, notably in the Community Shield. So maybe the result in that sense isn't a massive surprise. I think in general terms of sort of the Premier League, it's good because I think people are starting to think that maybe Liverpool are going to kind of run away with it a little bit, particularly when you would expect at some stage their new signings to really bed in with Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak are obviously still trying to get up to speed. I think if Liverpool were to start winning sort of 8, 9, 10 games on the bounce, it perhaps would have made the title race quite boring by the time you get halfway through the season. I think that Liverpool losing, Arsenal winning in the manner that they did adds an extra sort of layer of excitement to it all, even though it's only the end of September. But I do think it's important just for the Premier League in general that Liverpool are shown that they can be beaten.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of that game, and I got the impression that the Palace game was the game where all of Liverpool's problems this season came to a head, and I think we've been waiting for that. There was 2 ways to look at Liverpool at the start. It was like they're so good they're going to run away with the league, or they're getting away with it. And I thought they were getting away with it a little bit. Everyone's talked about the players that they brought in, but we haven't really focused on the players they've lost. They've lost certainly lost the fullback in Trent. Andy Robertson has barely played because he's been playing Kirkers. And they've lost, obviously, up front, 3 or 4 players through different reasons, obviously, including the Diogo Jota tragedy. And I think there's a lot of elements of it settling down right now. And I don't think Frimpong is anywhere near as reliable as Trent was, and Trent wasn't that reliable. And Slot made a point of digging him out for going walkabout for the killer goal that Palace scored. Now, Kirkers has struggled. You've got definitely issues at centre-half where Canate has really struggled this season defensively. I think in midfield, they can be overrun with if Wirtz is in the side, and Wirtz has struggled to settle in. So there are a few issues there that begin to bubble up, and I think Arne Slot is looking like he's not as happy as he was last season. I think he knows that he's got a job on his hands now. He's maybe got players in that aren't as good as the ones that they're replacing, and it'll take time, but they don't necessarily always come good. So it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool react to that, because they've got Galatasaray in Istanbul on Tuesday, which obviously a lot of travel involved there. Then it's Chelsea away at the weekend. Now, Chelsea have had a difficult couple of weeks, and they really need to get a result at home at Stamford Bridge. Otherwise, the press will start to mount on Enzo Maresca with the fans. So all of a sudden, Liverpool got a tricky week. And I think, you know Arsenal better than any of us, James. Do you think Arsenal now see this week as a real chance for them to turn the screw on the title race because of the situation that Liverpool might find themselves in?
Yeah, and also because they've had a very, very difficult start, right? I mean, we know going to Old Trafford isn't necessarily the difficult game it once was, but Arsenal have got a bad record there, so that was a tough start for them. They've obviously already played City. They've had to go to Newcastle. They've had tough games, and obviously the flip side of that is they know they're going to get a run where they can really go and put a sequence of results together to put huge pressure on the rest. And okay, West Ham are going to have a new manager. In Nuno Espirito Santo, but they're not in a great place at the moment. That game is at the Emirates at the weekend on Saturday. You'd assume, that is a home banker really, and they've got a few of those coming up. And you can sort of see if they can get into a winning habit and kind of silence those doubts. That's why I think Sunday could be quite significant for them, because there was this sort of argument starting to build about whether Arteta can actually use this squad to maximum effect to actually get them playing on the front foot. Well, they're going to have to play on the front foot in these sequence of games, because they're going to come up probably against sides who are going to play 4-5 at the back and low block, camp on the edge of their own box, have to break them down. And those are games where they have struggled. So, remember that they drew, I think was it 14 Premier League games last season, and a lot of them were those where they couldn't create enough. They didn't, they take those chances when they came. So there is a test ahead for them, but the fixture list, having looked very tough, now does look quite inviting, yeah.